We were at Naples Airport and this guy in a wheelchair came rushing up to me and said, "Oh, some of my favourite films you've done." "Oh, and you're not him." He thought I was Bruce Willis.
The value of having joint managing directors, not one managing director, is a massive competitive advantage.
We are very much two people with different sets of skills, so the efficiency levels are huge.
One of our key duties was to keep the family ethic as a business grows, which is not the easiest thing to do.
The biggest pressure at times is that ongoing culture and reputation that we have as a business. We've helped ingrain that, but I am very mindful that you can lose it in an instance.
Today's episode is brought to you in association with Affinia, the accountancy and tax advisory firm helping businesses and individuals make better financial decisions with confidence. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation with Bob and Mark. Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the UK Director Business Podcast. And today I'm privileged to welcome a duo. We have Bob Steward and Mark Hart, joint managing directors of Barnes Construction, and they've agreed to come and sit and have a chat to us about lots of things. But one important thing we'll probably cover is how do you actually become joint managing directors and manage to do that quite successfully without falling out with each other. I think that's a dynamic that we would love to talk about. But first of all, and I'll leave you to decide who does it. Would you like to just explain and give a roundup, a little bit of an elevator pitch on what Barnes Construction do and how long they've been around?
You kick off, Mark.
Okay. Did we agree to do this?
Do we get on?
Okay, so Barnes Construction, local Ipswich-based contractor. Turnover circa £100 million a year, formed in 1978 by the late David Barnes, who's no longer with us, died in 96.
Yeah, 95.
96.
Yeah.
But is survived by his son William, who's the majority shareholder and chairman, and two siblings, brother and sister, who are also shareholders of the business. So we predominantly work within East Anglia. We do go further afield for certain clients, and do most aspects of construction.
Tends to be predominantly commercial though, doesn't it?
Well, schools, hospitals, hotels, that type of thing. So public sector, some private sector stuff for local clients predominantly. Very little residential. So that's probably it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, very much a sort of rely on repeat business. You know, we construction can be a tough industry, but we've always had a customer comes first sort of kind of attitude, and try a non-confrontational approach to our business. And we like to think we put ourselves at the heart of the sort of the local community as well. Very big on the CSR stuff. Do a lot of charitable work and donations and the like as well.
I mean, I think what I've always admired about you guys is that you're obviously the Barnes family own the business, but the whole team, how many people is it you employ now? How many people have you got?
Well, within Barnes Construction is probably 120. The Barnes Group as a whole, which encompasses Bad Fuller, our M&E division, is probably circa 200.
Yeah. Wow. And without that, the whole thing is a family ethos, isn't it? I've always thought that is really great. You the guys, everybody works, lives, and a part of the communities they exist in, isn't they? That's what I think. That was what makes you special, and you've worked on that. It's not an easy thing to do over the years, is it? But you've worked really hard at it.
The word encapsulates is a family business, and although there's no direct family members in the business, it is the extended sort of Barnes family. It's always been that way. David was like that. Mary, who took over from David as chairman for a period of time after
that was
he died.
His wife, wasn't it?
Yeah. And she, very, very much, her main focus was on making sure everybody who had a new baby had a knitted
she used to knit
little jumper.
Really?
She did it herself. Yeah, she did. Yeah, we for both my kids, we had the little jumpers and stuff. So that was kind of were, installed in us in those days, and one of our key duties was to maintain that, keep the family ethic as a business grows, which is not the easiest thing to do.
So I'd like to talk to you both about, because you've got different routes into the construction industry, haven't you? So if we go right back and we say, right, okay, so I think I'd be right in saying, Mark, that yours is probably a tool on the tools.
Yes.
Would I be right in saying that?
You would
and
be
Bob,
right.
would yours be more, I don't know, can we say academic, or you came more through the quantity surveying?
Yeah, the technical side, commercial technical side.
So individually, just tell us a bit about what you were like, school kids, and when you were left school. And
straight A student, never got in trouble.
No, I was supposed to talk about myself.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to talk about you. Well, mine was interesting really, because I, unlike Bob, I didn't pass 11 plus. So my destiny was the Tower Rampart School in the centre of town, which was Victorian school in its last 2 years before they built the new school at Stoke Park, of which I finished my last year at. And the Tower Rampart School had a reputation, and a reputation which was very, very much the case. I mean, it was Victorian in its style and Victorian in its way. I mean, when they hadn't invested in it for many, many years. So when we arrived at Tower Rampart School, we would bus to town or walk to town to spend the bus money at Newstead's, or we would, but when we got there, it was very much inkwells, lift up top desks. It was very antiquated, and the teaching was like that as well. So it was a tough time at school. But then I left school, average student, probably would have done much, much better if I'd have been motivated and pushed. And my motivation came later in life and in
so when you say that, though, you're motivated and pushed, do you think by your parents, by your teachers? What do you mean by that?
I think from the teachers who weren't as motivated themselves as they probably should have been. They knew there was a big change. The atmosphere wasn't great. There was a real mix in a class, big classes at that time, with a massive mix of capabilities, and you could very easily get lost in a class. It was a tough environment.
Do you think it's tougher then than it is now?
Oh, I think it was hugely tougher, personally. But there are different pressures now. I mean, we didn't have the pressures of social media and peer pressure then, It was lots of the most underprivileged children in the town went there. It wasn't unusual not to have school uniform. I was one of those kids. And I suspect motivation from home wasn't great for me either. So it was very much you got to cut it yourself, really. But I wasn't destined to go in the construction industry. There was always said to me that get yourself a trade. That was the mindset for a state school kid, really. To get yourself a trade, the girls went to Churchman's, John Player's cigarette factory, and the guys, if they were lucky, got an apprenticeship.
We are showing our age now.
Well, exactly, yeah. But the girls used to love wearing those blue overalls, didn't they? But
But didn't I hear that you wanted to go in the army?
I did. My father was my father and my mother split up when I was young, but my father was 25 years in the army. So he went as a boy soldier in the Suffolk Regiment, then became the Royal Anglians. So I had that in my blood, but I'm blind in one eye, and I knew that, and I tried to blag the medical, which I was unsuccessful on. So
probably a good job, actually.
Yeah, well, I wanted to go into the infantry. I wanted to go in the same regiment, really. I wanted to go in the infantry. My father was never keen on it. And I thought that I might just get by. So when they said, read the letters on the wall, cover your eye up, your one eye, when they covered the other one, I got caught out. So that didn't work out.
Did they see you were holding your hand up with a gap?
Yeah, they I was rumbled. I was rumbled.
Yeah.
So, but I'm a big believer in fate. So I then tried hard to get an apprenticeship, and I managed to get an apprenticeship at Crane's factory as a pipe fitter.
And Cranes, at that point in time, what were they doing?
Cranes were one of the biggest manufacturers of valves and pipe work in the world.
Yeah.
In fact.
Well renowned, wasn't it? Crane fins.
Yeah, and still going now. So they were on Necton Road. And I had an apprenticeship to start in the September. And in the August, lots of industry went on 3-day week. And they decided they would pull the apprenticeships. So therefore, my apprenticeship got pulled just before the take-in at college. So all the apprenticeships had been taken. Now, my mother was quite a character and is still quite a character. And she was in the town one day and she shouted up to a building site, "Have you got any jobs for my boy?" Which the answer was, "Here's a number, ring them." And I rang Cubitt's at Westerfield, a small construction company in Suffolk, and went there to see if I could get a job as a labourer. And the chap who interviewed me said, "You're a little bit too clever for a labourer." He said, "What about a carpenter?" I'd never touched a piece of wood in my life. I didn't do woodwork at school.
Okay, question there. Because if you're blind in one eye, how do you actually hit the nail with the hammer?
It's in his fingers.
Miss your fingers.
He's got any nails.
It's all about judgments.
I mean, doesn't that affect you?
No, you get someone else to hold the nail.
It gets worse than that because the eye I can see out of, I'm colourblind in.
Oh, no.
So, this is part of the disability act.
Yeah.
Lucky you're an electrician.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, that would never happen, right? So, I became a carpenter, which was never my plan, and I've been in the industry ever since. And, like I said, I believe in fate. I mean, I've absolutely loved every minute of it. And I suspect my motivation became very much driven by the fact that I had a family young. And when our first young daughter was on the way, then there's a realisation that you've got to go out and earn some money.
So you've worked your way up doing what you're doing.
Yes.
And so we'll come to that story in a moment. But Bob, tell us a bit about yours.
Yes. So I went to a very small primary school in Ipswich. So I'm Ipswich born and bred, working class family. And I've always been very good with numbers, and I kind of, excelled in that environment in a very small school. It took me 11 plus, and I was really wanted to pass it, and I did. So I was really, really, really elated about that. Didn't ever think about the fact that all my other mates who I grew up with were going to a different school. There was 2 boys went up from that school to Northgate Grammar School. Arrived there thinking I was pretty clever until I met this massive group of real clever guys as well. It was an all boys school. So I felt like a bit of a fish out of water for a period of time. But you kind of, you find your feet eventually. And I thought, well, I'm going to really struggle here. But I kind of was okay. I was in the midstream at Northgate, but still excelled at maths. It was very much a school focusing on doing your A-levels and going on to university and stuff like that. My sort of working class roots kicked in. He said, "Well, I don't really want to do that. I want to get a job. I'll leave at 16, get my O-levels, get a career, apply for a trainee jobs in various places." So I thought I'd end up in working for someone like Barclays Bank or BT. They're the big industrial park. They always had a good training program in those days, so I applied for that, and didn't get a huge amount of responses from that. I went through the application process with BT, and then it passed the first stage, and then somebody said, "Bob, you're colourblind, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." So we both got this affliction, yeah. So and he said, "You do know the next stage is a colour blindness test." So, brilliant. So I won't waste my time. So anyway, my dad was in construction, site manager for a local firm, Sadler's. He was getting close to retirement and I was leaving school. And just one night he just said, "Oh, yeah, you're pretty good with numbers, aren't you, boy?" That sort of conversation. He said, "Have you ever thought of being a quantity surveyor?" I said, "I don't even know what one is." And he sort of kind of explained what it was. And he said, "This these are a couple of companies you want to apply to. He said, but don't bother applying to Stadler's because we're not working together. And I applied for a job at Fairclough Building, which is now Morgan Sindall. So they've still got offices in town. And this is where passing my 11 plus really, really helped me, because at the time they were only recruited from grammar schools. So my application, which was a bit late to that year, got through, and I got an interview and got taken on as a trainee quantity surveyor.
So I think what we should say at this point is, do you remember the 11 plus? You do remember it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people watching, listening, won't know what we're talking about.
Well,
the
11
idea...
plus is still going in Essex.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. There are still grammar schools
in Essex all have that requirement.
But the idea of O levels and CSEs and not GCSEs, and you had to take your 11 plus. And I've got a little story about that, because Bob and I actually went to the same school. We both went to Northgate. I was in the girls' school. You were in the boys' school.
Yeah.
But the funny story I have around that is that when I sat my 11 plus, I actually copied off the girl next to me.
You're a fraud then.
I am.
My God.
Wow.
I couldn't answer.
Is it too late to go back?
Wow. To announce this publicly.
And I've actually made that public.
It's just a cut.
And do you know what the irony is? The irony is that the person I copied off didn't pass the 11 plus, and I did. So I never quite figured that
I
out.
actually think the 11 plus was too premature for lads, particularly. Because I think
you were taking 11 plus when you're 15 then? Or?
Oh, yeah, exactly. No, but I do.
15 plus.
But I actually think that the 11 plus at that age, particularly for a lad who tends to mature a little bit later than the girls, and it's such a defining moment for the rest of your life, or can be. I think that's. I'm not so sure I'm a supporter of it, but I would be having
to SATs, isn't it? You have SATs. You have SATs nowadays, don't you?
Yeah.
But it's different to that, isn't it? I absolutely get where you're coming from, Bob. It's you think you're elated when you actually pass, but then you realise that actually your friendship groups are all going to this school, and you're going to a different school.
You're leading at least a double life. And so my mates at school were all over Ipswich. Didn't see them at weekends. I was in the boys' brigade, so I had my mates in the boys' brigade and my old school friends. So you'd sort of kind of, and eventually you didn't really feel you fitted in with either group, because you weren't with them all the time, kind of thing. So it was but character building, and I wouldn't change it, and it certainly gave me advantage. So it was good for me, passing 11 plus and going to grammar school for sure.
So let's skip forward a bit. I mean, were you starting a family? Had you got a young family, or what was?
No, I got married about 30.
Okay.
So we had our kids in my 30s. Yeah.
So talk about your first, when you came into Barnes then.
Well,
Shall I start? 'Cause
I
was there.
because you were there before me, weren't
And I think as well, what would be interesting is, because there's a history here with the ex-MD, Nick Fairs, who passed away sadly.
Yeah.
And the story of you guys applying at the same time. So let's talk about that story.
Indeed. So I was, like I say, trainee QS at Fairclough's, and they were great for training quality staff or whatever, but they weren't best payers, and company cars was a massive thing for a young man in those days, and certain companies offered it, but Fairclough's were probably the last firm to offer it to you, so you had to get to about 23 or whatever. So a couple of the people just above me getting the pecking order, they weren't getting cars, and they left. And I thought, oh God, I'll leave. So advert for Landlink Barnes, as Barnes was known in those days, assistant quantity surveyor, which I applied for. My dad was, do you know anything about that business? I said, well, no, not really, but I think that'd be okay. He said, they've only been going 4 years. What are you doing? You're in an established company. And he was really against it. And I said, well, and I went for an interview. Peter Phillips, who also previously worked at Fairclough's, interviewed me, and we got our house on fire. I thought, well, this is a really nice place to work. Unbeknown to me, Nick Fairs, who was a trainee at Sadler's, who knew my dad, so it's a very, very sort of small sort of community we live in Ipswich, had applied for the same job. and a fledgling company who didn't have probably a headcount of maybe 30 employees at the time decided to take us both on, and which was strange, really, because there was only one other surveyor in the business at the time, and so we sort of kind of joined the business together, went through the surveying ranks together. Nick went a different path through into project management, into Bayer Fuller, and came back eventually as MD of Barnes, and by that time I was surveying director. So so we had this sort of kind of camaraderie all the way through our careers.
And what year was that you joined?
83.
Wow.
So yeah, and my thoughts were, I'll get the Volkswagen Polo.
Nice.
So that was the real thing. A small increase. I love working effects. I'm a major contractor, man. I'm not going to be here for long, but this is just a little stepping stone to something bigger and better. And I was the biggest. I've had lots of culture shocks in my life. The first day at Northgate was a biggie. First few days at Barnes, or Landlink Barnes as it was amazing, because I was in a surveying department that you just did quantity surveying. Suddenly, I had people coming from me all directions. Right, can you ring up that supplier? I need to know about a concrete mix there. I had the buyer sitting at right angles to me. He was a very loud speaking guy, so that was in my ear. And I thought, my goodness, what have I let myself in for? But that, the ethos, the all in it together, and it was very much a very small business then.
So just tell me, what is it that a quantity surveyor does? And I don't want any jokes here, Mark.
Well,
what is it that a quantity surveyor
Not a lot.
I mean, from what you say, you actually look at the quantities. Is that what you do? Do you count the number?
When I said I was a trainee quantity surveyor when I left school, all my mates said, "What do they do then?" I said, "Well, I count bricks." That was my thing. So that was the thing you did as a trainer. You'd go around doing what called materials on site. So you'd value up all the materials on site. He's laughing. But a quantity surveyor, he does the procurement. So all the packages, the supplement packages, they're negotiated and placed by the QS. It deals with all the changes. No buildings are built as first intended, so there's always variation in the changes. So they value those changes. So they agree what we call a final account. So there's the starting price, and then there's your final account, and the QS manages that financial process.
So do you think you're a wheeler dealer then?
Some people do. I was part of it. That's not my strongest suit, I guess. But building relationships and getting on with people is probably what I my career has been sort of based on, or the evolution of it.
So you, Mark, had worked up through the tools, and you were when you came into Barnes, you were a little bit advanced. Were you a contracts manager or something like that?
No, I was a director at Jackson's, but my career is sort of, in many respects, we've not been ever far apart, Bob and I, really, because I was at Cubitt's as an apprentice, done my apprenticeship, was on the tools there as a carpenter, and then had a young baby, got married, and realised that I needed to earn more money. So I joined Fairclough in 1984. So Bob,
you weren't there together?
No, we just Bob had just left and I joined.
Yeah.
And I went on to work there for nearly 20 years. So just shy of 20 years. And I worked up my way from a carpenter right the way through the management layers there, to a point where I was doing most of the major projects, or involved in most of the major projects in the area. The Buttermarket Shop development in Ipswich, the infrastructure project for the attack helicopter at Watcham. So I was doing some pretty decent jobs. And that was a long journey through every element of every level of the industry, really, from the tools. And then I had a midlife crisis. I decided that I'm either going to stay for 40 years or I'm going to leave. So I spoke to Bernard Clark, who was the managing director at Jackson's at the time. And a bit like Bob with the Polo, he offered me a Jag. And I thought, oh, that sounds nice. So I went to Jackson's, and I was on the main board at Jackson's with Bernie and a few of the others. And within a couple of years of being there, we sold the business to ISG, which was a worldwide construction company, no longer with us now. But and it became really tough really tough. The boardroom was quite a difficult place to be. And then I decided after 4 years that this probably wasn't somewhere that I wanted to be longer term. And
Was that the investors making it difficult? Was that the people?
It was the investors making it difficult, but there was also, we talk about culture a lot, and the culture that we've developed in our business at Barnes, that was the other side of the coin. The culture there was very toxic, and it didn't align with my morals and some of the things that are important to me in terms of integrity and what have you. So I found that quite tough. And I'd known Nick Fairs, who was the MD at Bauer Fuller for many years, as Bob had referred to, and I'd known him a long time because Nick worked for me as a subcontractor. And I'd decided that I'd had enough, and I would always fancy getting with a company that had those morals, was a private company after having 25 years in the PLC world. And I rang Nick and I said to Nick, look, I'm going to leave. We had a really good relationship. I said, but I wanted to tell you first, in case if there's anything of interest at Barnes. And he said, don't talk to anybody. I'll come back to you this afternoon. I think he spoke to William Barnes. And then that evening I was at William's farm with Nick. And over the next 6 months, we developed a process for me to join.
Did it involve a car?
No,
Any car? What car was it? How do you prove on a day?
We went into our own cars then. So so I, like everything at Barnes, it was a very thought out process. It was part of a bigger plan. So I'd gone as a main board director, and I stepped down to an associate director level, which didn't concern me because it was more about the bigger picture. And myself, William and Nick had a plan on that. So I joined in 2007, so nearly 20 years with Barnes now.
Yeah.
Now seems a great time to take a break and talk to you about our podcast sponsor, Affinia. Affinia is an accountancy and tax advisory firm helping businesses and individuals make better financial decisions with confidence. From everyday accounting to long-term strategic planning, their team is dedicated to understanding your goals and supporting you with proactive advice that truly adds value. In particular, Affinia supports business owners through every stage of mergers, acquisitions, and selling a business. So whether you're planning a future exit or already preparing for a sale, Affinia's corporate finance experts help you understand your options, maximise your value, and negotiate with confidence. From valuations to deal structuring, they provide the insight and experience needed to achieve your desired outcome. Find out more at affinia.co.uk. A quick pause in the conversation. If you're a director, MD, CEO or business owner in Norfolk, Suffolk and Essex, and you ever feel that leadership can be quietly isolating, you're not alone. That's exactly why I created the UK Director Business Club, a private peer community for experienced directors and business owners and senior leaders who value thoughtful conversation, perspective and credibility over networking noise. There's no selling, no pitching, just real discussion with people who understand the responsibility of leading a business. If that sounds like something you'd value, click on the link in the description. So, obviously, the reason you are joint MDs is because, sadly, Nick passed away. But and I'm sure Rob would be as well, interested to talk to you about the dynamic of being joint MDs, but also because it's really important for business owners, I think, is this aspect of when someone that is key and intrinsic into the business, as Nick was, and also a friend, as well as a colleague, how you as a business manage that in the fact of him being ill and being able to manage that and still run the business and keep it going and on an even keel when emotionally you guys are probably a bit ripped apart, really, with him passing away. Just talk, if you can, a little bit about that, and because I think it's interesting for people to learn from that.
Yeah, it was very tough, obviously. And Nick was dealt with it his sort of illness in a way that not everyone would. You know, he was still actively involved probably up to about a week before he passed.
Wow.
And you know, he shouldn't have been working for weeks before that, months before probably. So kind of, and he was gently letting things go, but he really struggled with that. But behind the scenes, William was sort of kind of preparing us to take over interimly at the point of it was obvious that Nick was gonna die, so we were you are mentally preparing yourself, but it's still it's a massive thing. And the day Nick died, I remember we sat in the boardroom making phone calls to all his closest friends and our close friends, and tough, it really was.
Probably one of the hardest.
Yeah.
Well, probably the hardest period of a career. And you look back on it now and you think, good heavens, how did he have the stamina and the determination? I mean, those last few weeks, we would go to Nick's house and sit in his front room, pretty much Bob and I on a separate basis. And I can remember the last time I went to Nick's about 2 or 3 days before he died. And I turned up with my folder because Nick loved to get the folder out in the book. I mean, he was still talking salaries and things like that 2 or 3 days before he died. And then he was a poor frail thing at that time. And I turned up this one afternoon, and Julie, his wife, said, "Well, I'm going to pop out. Take the time to pop out. It's just Nick and I in there." And I got my book out, and he said, "Put your book away." And I knew at that time that was a realization that we didn't. He said, let's just chat. And it was right. It was really emotional at the time. And he said, "Let's just chat. Put the book away." And we chatted for 2 hours about kids, grandkids, holidays, which I weren't allowed to talk to with Julie because I used to encourage her to go to far-flung places. And Nick, being a surveyor by trade, didn't want to. There was a cost plan. And I can remember leaving that afternoon. He stood up as best he could, give us a hug, and I never saw him again. And the worst thing was, on the Friday of that week, I was at the Grosvenor in London at a dinner, and he was ringing me on my phone, and I couldn't answer because it was in the middle of a dinner speech. And I thought, oh, that's difficult. So I put the phone down, and it was later that evening. I got on the train. I listened to the voicemail. This really gruff Nick was on there. "Hope you had a great day, Mark. Just wanted to catch up with you." Never spoke to him again. He died a couple of days later, and it was. And you think, God, if only I'd answered that phone. But then again, you can.
But I think that's an interesting conversation to have, because when we run businesses, we are caught up in the busyness of what we do, and it's all consuming, and sometimes those moments where you reflect back and you think, God, if I just answered that phone, if I just spoken to that person or whatever.
Well, you can't do that, can you, really?
I know, but it's it's almost like, it's that thing about being able to just be in the moment and say, okay, would you, if you turn the clock back, you'd pick up that phone and walk out the room. And that call,
But those little meetings we used to have with him, Julie, his wife, and so that's keeping him going, Bob.
Yeah.
He gets up, he'll go and have a shower, he'll want to be presentable. That gives him a little bit of energy for that sort of hour or two with you guys. He said that's keeping him going.
So
he was totally committed, that's for sure, and he was heroic, really, when you look back, because I think you've got to have some determination to maintain that level of input and interest. And there were days when you see him walk into the car park when he was getting in the office, and you thought, good heavens, how's he getting there? Quite difficult, really. But William was great with us as well.
Yeah, and we had this real support of the community, obviously within the business, but outside the business. So a real outpouring of sort of grief and support, and that sort of got us through that initial sort of kind of phase. And we, Nick had helped develop the business from quite a humble turnover level of maybe 10 million to maybe 65, 70 million. So in his tenures, which we were both part of, the business had grown significantly. So we took it over at a good time. And probably we both neither of us aspired to be an MD, because we just thought, well, we'd all probably go out together as a sort of group, we're all very similar age. And it's tragic circumstances, but I think we both have reflected that was a sort of boost for our career that we probably needed at that stage. And we both sort of kind of hate the circumstances of why or how it's happened, but the fact that it's happened has been really, really rewarding and a great way to sort of end our careers.
So tell us about that then, because you guys are very different.
No,
Or do you think you're the same?
There's fundamentally, we are very similar in certain areas. We do. I think we both think we're quite funny, so we make each other laugh, and that's great. We're caring people, and there's loads of family men. There's lots of attributes that we share. We love sport. We're competitive. Nobody is ever going to be as competitive as Mark, and I do mean that.
What you mean by that, Bob?
But
when you're playing board games with the granddaughters,
they don't play. They don't play.
do
Monopoly.
you play to win?
They don't play Monopoly with me. I've had 6-year-old daughter, 7-year-old daughter, and not letting them have a house or a hotel. They hate me for it. They won't play with me. No, I am competitive. Yeah, I would agree to that.
And obviously, you both love golf.
We do. So we've got lots of shared issues. We love Ipswich Town. We're season tickets together. So we have quite a lot of outside interests that overlap as well. So our relationship is of friendship and business. And we regularly get moaned at by our wives. You see more of Mark than you do of me. You spend more time with Mark.
It's something that, I think Bob's right. We do share a lot of values, but have different interests and different types of lives, but we spend a lot of time together. We don't have, we're very honest with each other. We're tight. We used a term from day one when we took over that we wouldn't let anyone drive a wedge between us. And if we had
Oh, I thought when you said tight that you meant with money.
No,
we're tight-knit.
Tight-knit, and we...
and it's always we.
So what did you make a pact then? When you...
Well, we did pretty much, I think, didn't we? We were be honest with each other.
Yeah, you got.
Do you think that's important, that you set that out right at the beginning?
Oh, yeah. If you're a partnership and you are joint, then you've got to be joined up, haven't you? And there's no point in point scoring of each other or whatever. So we support each other publicly and internally, and it's the only way for that to really work well. Because if we're falling out or falling apart, then the business is getting involved in some.
There needs to be trust.
Politics.
There needs to be trust.
Yeah.
And the good thing is, we were talking about this the other day. Really, we've both got two. Although we're very similar in terms of the DNA that runs through people and business, we are very much two people with different sets of skills, things that one feels more comfortable than the other with, what have you. And the trust bit is the important bit, because there'll be things that Bob does that I need to be aware of, and vice versa that I do that Bob needs to be aware of, but we don't need to be sat in the room watching because we've got no confidence. We can be doing things so the efficiency levels are huge. And there's lots of graveyards of failed joint manager and director situations. And ours is not one of those. Ours is we are mindful that it's hugely successful in our opinion, and others tell us that. There is, but it is based on real firm principles, and we have fun. We have fun. I don't spend Monday to Friday with Bob. We go to football on a Saturday, we play golf. We have to get on, because if you don't, then that doesn't work. But we did say from day one, if we have ever disagreement, I can't think of disagreements we've had in 8 years. And bear in mind, before we took over as MDs, we were construction director and surveying director, so we were a tight group anyway. You had to work together. But we said, look, if there's any disagreements, we take them outside of the boardroom and we have them on a one-to-one. We don't agree with everything, but pretty much,
No.
But it's compromise is important as well.
So our skill set really complements. So you splice the two of us together, you won't get that on one person, because I've got a commercial background, and Mark's on the delivery technical side. So any problem that comes to our level, one of us is kind of expert in it, I guess, or well versed in it. So that works very well. But we decided, a few fundamental rules, and what I was always, if anyone calls you the MD, joint MD, was one of those. We would, like say, wouldn't have a wedge. We wouldn't let anyone sort of play off against each other. We have a golf tour. There's one character on there who's always trying for fun, and that is hilarious. But so we that was a pact that we were definitely intent on. But we also, our philosophy was, we're going to keep it simple. Our management style is going to be getting the best out of what people do best. So we had a few mantras, and we had square pegs and square holes. I know it sounds fairly basic, but that really was. So we've got lots of talented people in our business, but sometimes we were trying to be pushed into directions that was not their comfort area. We said, well, I'm going to actually, let's sit down with these people and say, look, this is what you do really well, and I want you to do more of it.
We've empowered people,
and that's right. And we didn't need everything to be checked off by us, so we empowered people. So we gave them responsibility and empowerment as well. And that was a kind of not that Nick was necessarily different to that, but we relaxed it. We relaxed that side.
And I think the other thing which is important, I think, is that being able to see somebody else's problem, being humble I think is really important. And I think the fact that this has come to us later in our careers, there isn't this massive ego. It's about making this the best it can be for the bigger stakeholders, and that humble approach, that walking in somebody's shoes for a mile to see how they are are important things. And we want people to have a bit of fun. I think I feel the biggest pressure at times is that ongoing culture and reputation that we have as a business, maintaining that, and it is ingrained in the business, and we've helped ingrain it. But I am very mindful that you can lose it in an instance. A slightly different, and it's a pressure for those that come behind us. We've had a very measured and very long-term approach to that process, so they're being ingrained long-term.
So this is the succession and the legacy and the new people, the people that are coming up.
Yeah, indeed. And it is something that exists at every level within our business, and we have to maintain it, because there's nothing that worries me from a technical point of view. There's not something I haven't seen before, or something that it comes up which I think we can't deal with. I think we've got so much expertise in the business to deal with that. My biggest concern is that reputation going, because the reputation is what sets us apart from many. There's lots of very, very good businesses like ours, and we don't spend too much time worrying about what other people do. What we do spend a lot of time worrying about what we do and what the perception of us is as a business. And nothing is more satisfying. It's great to build a building, great to get an award, and we've got some great, shells full of those. They're nice, but the most important thing, when somebody says, do you know what? We really like working with Barnes. We like to work with Bob and Mark and the broader team. It's a good experience, because that's more satisfying, more rewarding than anything that you do. Yeah. And that sets you apart.
This construction is, by its nature, with insurance and things like that, it's a risky business, isn't it?
Well, high risk, low return.
Yeah. And the margins aren't brilliant.
No, you can soon lose your profit.
Probably constrained as time goes on more than ever by lots of different things influencing what makes a difference. And I think that, for me, I want to ask you though this question, because you spoke about fun. So tell me, each of you, have you got a memory where you've had a laugh out loud moment, maybe at the expense of the other person or something, that you can share with us, obviously?
So many. So many.
It's,
I mean, today,
yeah,
I mean,
it's just it's continuous and constant. We had a directors meeting yesterday, and Mark opened the wrong version of his program, which he has a habit of doing. So we were, oh no, Dad, I've got it wrong again. The old Dick Henry. So that was the moment we had yesterday. But we have a constant. But what we talk about pressure in the industry. If a partnership is working well, that's a great diffuser of pressure.
What, humour?
Yeah, well, humour, just the fact that you can bounce things off each other.
Yeah,
We have a
sharing.
Monday meeting, and if we can have a rant off as well, so we can express our anger about other things to each other. We're not bottling it up, and when we have a rant off, it ends up laughing our heads off about. We put it into humour.
we could be here all day talking about that. There is not, I can honestly say, there's not a single day goes by where Bob and I are not having a laugh about something. Don't get me wrong, we're not unprofessional. We very much
Sometimes.
but we have a smile about something every day. And I tend to use humour in the boardroom when I think something is going awry or somebody feels, if there's an awkward moment in the boardroom, we've got 10 directors in there and there's an awkward moment, and I can see that it may go down a route that would be counterproductive, then
Open up the wrong program.
yeah, I will find a way to diffuse that, and more often than not, it will be a bit of light-hearted humour, but always prepared to laugh at myself.
Yeah,
Because I think that's quite important as well.
Yeah,
I have to say this is a remarkable story, because I came into this because I've met you, Mark.
Yeah.
We've never met Bob.
No.
And I kept thinking coming into this, let's find the yin yang, the thing that you're doing that the other one doesn't do, the kind of, the mum and dad almost kind of like, where's the balance? But it's not that with you. I think if people listen to this, they'll be like, somehow I think we kind of assume that must be how a joint thing works to bring, but you've got this sort of model based on your history together, your understanding of one another, your closeness is not about just work, you go to the football together, you play golf, you kind of, and you're really comfortable and happy with it. We see, so I'm involved with Homestar, and they've just brought in joint CEOs. And I looked at it, I thought, that's not going to work, is it? You know what I mean? Because I just think, and they're working, and it is working from what I've seen so far. However, one of the CEO works Monday to Wednesday, the other one works Wednesday to Friday. So it's not joint in my view. And I could just see that must be really difficult. Whereas, of course, obviously you do, Monday to Friday together. And there's not this kind of splitting.
Well, it's quite strange really, Rob, because many people will look at us and think, it's like Walkman Wise show.
Anton Deck.
Yeah, well, easy. But the thing is, what there is, and there has to be for a successful business work, there's a steely determination to get it right underneath.
Yeah.
And when we're heads down and away from the cameras as such, we are grafting hard.
Yeah.
And we're working hard at it. Bob knows how competitive I am. I'm always trying to be one step ahead of the game. Bob is very much looking at detail, so our skills very much complement each other.
Yeah.
And then a lot of what we do is getting out there, whether it be in Cambridge, in London, in Suffolk. We're getting out there and we're promoting the business. We're meeting people. We're talking to people, and we both do different elements of that in different ways. So it is really, really important to have that whole approach. And it's a partnership. It works. We don't know always why it works, but it just does.
Do you bolster each other? So, I mean, if you're doubting something, do you give Bob? Does that work the other way?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we give each other confidence as well. That you are doing the right thing or whatever, and we have to make decisions individually. So it's always about informing each other what we have done or said or whatever, but we do trust in each other implicitly. And I know I can talk on behalf of Mark, and you'll say that as well. I know Bob would say the same thing, and we're comfortable in each other making those statements publicly. So yeah,
It's quite uncanny sometimes, though, isn't it? Like when you've been married. I've been married for 41 years, and you sometimes think the same. And then Bob and I will be sitting in a big room, and there'll be lots, and I'll come out and I'll say something that's almost identical thought process.
It's a bit funny, this, Bob, but what did you think about so and so's approach? Well, I thought it was terrible. Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because I thought the same thing.
I'm thinking that it's a bit like being parents with kids, because you get the kids play you off against each other. So it might be like that. Is that like that in the workforce? Where how do you deal with that? Because they come to one and they say, oh, so, and then they don't get the right answer they're looking for. So they go to the next person and go, oh,
well, psychology is a big thing, I think, and particularly in the industry that we work in, because there's a fine line between balance of banter, professionalism, getting it right. We are blessed to have some fantastic people that we've developed over time ourselves, people that we've inherited, and that is a real key factor to the success that we have. But every individual needs something different. Some people need an arm around the shoulder. Some people need to kick up the bum, But you've got to know your audience. And I think one of the things that we are good at is we're knowing the audience and adapting the approach to make sure we get... Because at the end of the day, all we want to be is successful, have a reputation which is right at the top end, and we want to be profitable. We want to be successful in from a commercial aspect. Now, we're fortunate enough that over time, us and a lot of other very good people have developed that reputation for us. So the challenge for Bob and I is to maintain that, to hand it on to the next. We're just custodians of that. Hand it on to the next group of people who can continue that. And do you know what? If we can do all that, and we have some days where the heads are in the hand. It's not all smiles. There's, sometimes you're paddling like hell on the surface, but if you can get there, and that's important.
So what does the future look like for the Mark and Bob bromance that we've got going on here?
Bob is going to play...
when you retire.
Well, Bob will be playing off a handicap of 40. I'll be playing off 45. We'll be ripping up everything on the seniors tour, won't we?
Indeed, hopefully.
Will you retire at the same time?
Well, that's not in the open
public domain.
Okay.
But we're of a similar age, so it'll be of a similar.
Be one big party when you go.
Similar time scale.
Well, we've said
there is a plan.
There is
a plan, which is within the business of the.
Do you remember Morecambe and Wise show?
Of course I do.
Do you remember when they used to go out with the hands behind
Yeah.
bring the sun? That's how we go out.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, 100%.
He's got short, fat, hairy legs. You do.
I think the other thing people will pick up from this podcast, I think, is that the value of having joint managing directors, not one managing director, is a massive competitive advantage.
Well, yeah, if it works, that is huge.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Buy one, get one free. Yeah, well, I mean...
No, it's not really like that, is it? Well, you don't halve your salaries, do you?
Do you know what? There's lots of people often, we talk to us a lot about how it works, why does it work, do you know what? We don't know all the answers for that. It just does.
Yeah.
But what it does, it clearly takes effort, it takes attitude, and it's not going to work for everybody, and but it works for us, and that's the most important thing. But we knew it would work from day one, didn't we?
Yeah, well, we got on as soon as I met you, because you were quite well known in the industry, but I'd heard of it, but I hadn't ever spoken to you until that first night. I got invited over to Williams, and as an introductory sort of thing, we just hit it off. We started chatting, found out that Mark's one of his best mates at school is my brother-in-law. So that was kind of totally straight at the...
What's interesting is when you met him, because everybody writes notes when they came on here as the guests. One of your things, Mark, you said is that you've been recognised twice as somebody else.
Yeah.
How much is that? So was that moment, Bob, when you met Mark and you thought he was somebody else? And who is that person?
Yes, that's what I wrote down.
Well, my wife will hate me for telling you this, but and this is not an ego trip either. We were in,
Is it? Or,
but I was quite pleased about it. But we were in, my wife and I were in India probably 6-7 years ago, and we were going around a park in Jaipur. And as we were walking around this park, which wasn't many people about, slowly an entourage of kids were building up and kept following me everywhere, to the point that over an hour, I've got 30 or 40 children, teenage children, wanting their photographs taken with me. My wife is quite understated and quite modest. She don't like any attention like that. So she said, I'm off. So she was sat 100 yards away having a drink while I was milking this situation, and people were shoving and pushing and trying to get to me, and I don't know what it is, but I'll take it. And I started to say, look, take your turn, everybody. I'm here all day. You don't have to rush. I'm here all day. And I hadn't got a clue what it was. And much to my delight, I was told by a taxi driver, an Indian guy, he said, they've been chasing you all day around here because they think you're Bruce Willis.
Oh my God.
Well, but which is great. Much to my wife's disgust, I said, well, hang on, if I'm Bruce Willis, you're Demi Moore. You're Demi Moore. But this got worse because my wife said it's rubbish. No, it's absolute rubbish. Bearing in mind the bald Bruce Willis, I think it is. Anyway, the following year, we were in Sorrento and we were at Naples Airport, and this guy in a wheelchair came rushing up to me and said, oh, some of my favourite films you've done. And I thought, and he went, oh, you're not him. He thought it was Bruce Willis. So 2 out of 2. And then just to cap it all off, my wife and I were down at the beach out at Felixstowe one Sunday morning, and we decided to go for a walk along the front. And as we walked along the front, there was a lady with her daughter walking past with their dogs walking. As they got past, we heard them once around say, it's Bruce Willis, it's Bruce Willis. So, look, I'll take it.
When you first met Mark, did you think he was Bruce Willis?
Harry Hill, I think you said.
That was the shirt, wasn't it? Yeah. What are those on baddies on the Doctor Who? What are they called?
What was that? Sober.
We had that on the tour.
We found their weakness.
Yeah, I can't think of the name now.
Thankfully, you can't.
You'd be looking it up.
You know this is going out everywhere.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
So it's been great to have you as guests. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hopefully we've enjoyed that one.
Oh, that's amazing.
No,
That's amazing. It's just an amazing story. I think the culture thing is just incredible, actually, to have that feeling of the family for so long. I mean, clearly, the Barnes family, they've kept that going. They've instilled it, and that has made it.
Well, the story's not over, and I think there'll be a sequel. Well, I was bound to be.
And it won't star you. I didn't mean that. Of course it will.
Die Hard 6.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the UK Director Business Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, then visit our website, ukdirectormagazines.co.uk, where you can listen to more episodes as well as download our library of magazines, Suffolk Director, Norfolk Director and Essex Director. Don't forget to join our UK Director Business Club, where you can enjoy a whole host of benefits, including exclusive content such as unedited podcasts, free tickets to our events, and so much more. See you next time. Goodbye.